Welcome to the deep dive. We're tackling a really practical topic today. The basics of English for introductions and getting conversations off the ground.
Okay.
Whether you're traveling, connecting online, or, just meeting new people, knowing how to handle those initial exchanges confidently, it can make a huge difference.
It really can. And our mission in this deep dive is basically to pull out the most useful and culturally aware advice from some great English learning resources.
Okay.
Specifically, we looked at YouTube transcripts from EnglishClass101.com. We want to give you the tools to approach those first English interactions with, well, real assurance.
Okay, let's dive right in then. Initial greetings. One of the first phrases you'll probably hear is, "Hello, it's nice to meet you." What's the inside scoop on this one?
Well, what's interesting here is just how nuanced even seemingly simple phrases can be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our sources point out that hello, it's nice to meet you. It's really reserved for that very first meeting.
Only the first time.
Yeah. If you say it again to someone you've already met, it can feel a bit odd, almost like you didn't quite register meeting them the first time.
That's
It's all about signaling you acknowledge that first connection.
right. So it's a one-time use phrase. That's a key takeaway already. Okay, next up. My name is, and the slightly shorter, my names. When are we using these?
These are your sort of reliable go-to phrases for introducing yourself.
Oui.
Both the very first time you meet someone and also if you maybe need to reintroduce yourself in a different situation. Like, say you're at a party, you start talking to someone.
Yeah.
You could just confidently say, my name is your name, or my name's your name. Both the full version and the contraction work fine.
Makes sense. Now, after the name often comes origin, right? I'm from. What level of detail are people expecting here?
That's a really good point about cultural expectations.
Okay.
Generally, when you say I'm from, people expect you to mention a country, maybe a city, perhaps a general region.
Okay. Not too specific then.
Right. What's interesting and actually kind of funny, as the source highlights, is that you should generally avoid saying, like, the type of building you live in.
Huh. Really?
Yeah, saying I live in an apartment in response to where you're from just doesn't sound quite right. It's a bit unnatural.
I can totally picture that being awkward. And the examples they gave were pretty funny things like your mom's house or...
A cave in Southern Europe,
Yeah.
Or even the future, or your neighbor's dog house fish glove club. Just wild examples.
So why do those kinds of answers not really work in that context?
Well, I think those playful examples really just highlight the expectation, You're expected to share a generally recognized geographical location when asked about your origin.
Right, something people can place.
Exactly. It helps establish a kind of shared understanding, a starting point for maybe connecting based on place, fantastical answers, or like overly specific building types. They don't really do that in a first meeting. And it's similar with I live in. You typically share your city, your country, maybe a well-known area. Again, it's about deeming a recognizable location.
Got it. Location established. Now, what about when the conversation shifts to what someone actually does?
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting in terms of just everyday language.
Mm-hmm.
The common question, the one you'll hear most often, is what do you do?
What do you do? Okay.
This is pretty much the standard natural way to ask about someone's job or profession in English. Our sources point out that while what is your job is, grammatically correct,
Mm-hmm.
it's not really a question native speakers typically ask in conversation. It can sound a little stiff, maybe a bit unnatural.
That's a really helpful distinction. So stick with what do you do and how should you answer that?
The natural correct way is I'm an engine plus your job title. Simple as that.
Okay.
So if someone asks, what do you do? You might say, I'm a teacher, or I'm an engineer, or even the fun example they had, I'm a donut shop tester.
Huh. Donut shop tester. That definitely sounds like a good conversation starter itself. All right, let's talk about sharing age. You can say, I'm years old, or the shorter, I'm plus age. But there's a bit more to it than just the phrase, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. While those phrases are perfectly fine for stating your own age, directly asking someone how old are you,
Mm-hmm.
well, that can be seen as culturally sensitive,
Right.
especially with adults and perhaps even more so with women. It's generally considered less polite if you've just met someone.
Interesting. Because in some cultures, asking age is quite normal, right? Did the sources say why it might be more sensitive in English-speaking contexts?
It sort of touches on the idea that, in some Western cultures anyway, age is viewed as slightly more private information.
Right.
And asking directly can feel a bit intrusive, especially early on when you're still building rapport.
Okay, so how do you navigate that politely if you actually do need or want to know someone's age?
The source highlights a really useful phrase, kind of a magic phrase to soften it. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
Do you mind me asking?
Yeah, that preface makes the question much more considerate.
Yeah.
And notice the grammar there. It's how old you are, not how old are you, in that indirect structure.
Got it. Do you mind me asking how old you are? That's a great one to keep in your back pocket. And what are some common ways people respond, whether the question was direct or, softened like that?
Responses can be pretty straightforward, like, I'm 25 years old, or just, I'm 25.
Mm-hmm.
You might also hear slightly more detailed answers, especially around birthdays. Things like, I just turned 25, or I'll turn 25 this month, or maybe I'll turn 25 in July.
Okay.
And interestingly, the source points out that when talking about a future birthday, it's more natural just to mention the month, not usually the specific date.
Keeps it a bit more conversational, I guess. What about turning the question back if someone asks you first?
Oh, simple. The easy and effective way is just, how about you? And the advice given is that since the other person asked about age first, you don't necessarily need to worry quite as much about being overly polite when you return the question.
Fair enough. A little less formal needed in return. And what if someone gets playful and asks, how old do you think I am?
Yes, the classic age-guessing trap.
Right.
The source gives some very wise advice here.
Mm-hmm.
It's generally much safer to guess lower than what you actually think.
Always guess lower.
Pretty much, yeah. Overestimating someone's age can definitely cause offense, so erring on the side of caution is the smart play. If you think someone looks, say, around 40, maybe guess 35 and just see how they react.
Solid strategy. Okay, let's switch gears a bit now. Let's talk about hobbies and what people do in their free time.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is, again, the difference in the questions people naturally ask. Similar to, what is your job? Asking, what is your hobby? Isn't something native speakers tend to say much in casual chat.
Really? So what do they say?
The more natural, common questions are things like, what do you like to do? Or maybe, what do you do in your free time?
Right. Those sound much more conversational, more open-ended. And how do you usually answer questions like that?
The typical answer format is, I enjoy, or I like, plus either a noun phrase or a gerund. That's the verb form ending in ing that acts like a noun.
Okay.
So you might say, I like listening to music, or I enjoy watching movies, I like baking cakes, I enjoy tap dancing, or making new friends.
Lots of options.
Yeah, and for the more adventurous, there was that example, I like spelunking in North Africa.
Spelunking in North Africa, that's specific. What about the phrase, one of my hobbies is? Is that okay to use?
Yeah, that's another perfectly acceptable way to talk about your interests. But the source does offer a useful tip here.
Oh, yeah.
When using that phrase, it's often better to choose hobbies that are fairly common, things others can easily understand and relate to.
To help the conversation along.
Exactly. It helps facilitate more conversation. Think things like, photography, cooking, dancing, swimming, reading books, maybe sports like snowboarding. The idea is to pick something that makes it easy for the other person to jump in and connect.
That makes a lot of sense. Sticking to more familiar ground can build connections faster. Now, for many people listening, learning English is probably one of their current activities. How do you talk about that naturally?
Right. There are a few really useful phrases. You can say, I've been learning English for, and then the length of time.
Okay.
For example, I've been learning English for 6 months or for a few years. Alternatively, you can use, I've been learning English since, followed by a specific point in time like since January or since I moved here.
So for indicates duration and since marks the start point. Got it. Are there other similar phrases people might use?
Yep. You could also say, I've been studying, or I've been practicing, or even I've been speaking English for. The same rules apply for using for and since. And if someone asks where you're learning, you could just say, I'm learning English at location, like EnglishClass101.com or a language school or with my private tutor.
And the source mentioned a subtle grammar point here too, didn't it? The difference between saying I'm learning versus I learned.
Yeah, that's a good one. Using the present progressive tense, I'm learning English, implies that your study is ongoing. It's happening now.
Right.
If you were to say, I learned English at place, using the simple past, it kind of suggests that your studies there are finished, complete.
Okay.
So I'm learning or I'm studying usually sounds more natural when you're talking about your current language journey.
Okay, so we've covered introducing ourselves, talking about basics like origin, job, age, hobbies, even learning English. Now, for what can sometimes feel like the trickiest bit, actually starting a conversation, what are some key tips from the sources?
Well, the very first tip is maybe counterintuitive for a language lesson, but it's really important. Try not to be shy.
Just go for it.
Kind of. The source really emphasizes the value of appearing confident, even if you're maybe faking it a little inside.
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly. Speaking a second language can be intimidating, no doubt, but projecting a bit of confidence really helps. The source even suggests that speaking another language can be an opportunity to sort of explore a slightly different side of your personality, maybe a more outgoing one.
That's a really interesting way to frame it, language learning, as a chance for a bit of a personality tweak. Okay, what's another key tip for starting conversations?
Another useful point is about how English conversations tend to flow. Generally, English speakers are pretty comfortable with interjections and brief interruptions, within reason, obviously.
Right.
You don't always have to wait for a formal invitation or a long pause to speak. If you have a thought that connects to what someone's saying, you can often just jump in briefly to agree or even politely disagree. It's a way to enter the flow.
So don't be afraid to politely interject. Got it. What about those initial icebreaker moments? Trying to talk to someone new?
Right. This is where making simple, kind of neutral observations about your shared surroundings can be super effective.
Like what?
Well, if you're in a public place, a cafe, waiting in line, whatever, you could comment on something easy to see and generally agreeable, maybe the weather, piece of art, a headline on a TV screen you both see. The key is keeping the comment light, not too personal or controversial.
Yeah.
It creates an easy opening for someone else to respond.
Light and neutral. Good guidelines. The source also mentioned asking indirect questions. How does that work for starting a conversation?
Yeah, an indirect question is basically a gentler way to invite someone's opinion or get a conversation going without being too direct, without putting them on the spot.
Okay.
The example given was about the weather. Instead of asking a stranger directly, "Is it hot in here?" which is a bit abrupt, you could say something like, "Wow, it's quite warm today, isn't it?" You offer an observation and invite agreement using that tag question, isn't it? Without demanding a strong personal opinion right away.
That makes perfect sense. It's a subtle invitation to chat. Now, are there any common mistakes or things you should generally avoid when trying to spark up a conversation?
Yes, one specific piece of advice was to generally avoid initiating conversations with complete strangers by asking, "How are you?"
Really? But that seems like such a standard greeting.
It is, once you know someone even slightly. But with a total stranger, the source suggests it can sometimes sound a bit too familiar, maybe even intrusive. They might feel obligated to share more than they're comfortable with right at that first moment.
That's a really good point. Save "how are you" for people you've at least exchanged a few words with before. Okay, what about specific situations like, say, social events designed for mingling?
Right, in those settings like a meetup, a party, where the whole point is to connect, the advice is to be a bit more energetic when you introduce yourself.
More energy.
Yeah, maybe a smile, clear introduction, and then follow up immediately with a question related to the event itself. Like, "Hi, I'm your name. Have you been to one of these events before?" Or, "Is this your first time here?" Other good ones could be, "Who do you know at this party?" Or, "How did you find out about this event?"
Okay.
But it's important to remember this more forward approach is probably best suited for those kinds of events. Maybe not so much for just waiting for a bus in public.
Right. Context is key. What about less obviously social situations where you might still want or need to talk to someone?
Asking for help or information can be a really effective, non-threatening way to start things off.
Oh, like asking for directions.
Exactly. Asking for directions or asking where something is located, like, "Excuse me, could you tell me where the restrooms are?" Or, "Do you happen to know where the copy machine is?" Asking for help makes you seem approachable, and it gives the other person a really clear, easy way to respond and engage.
That's a clever strategy, a practical question as an opener. Now, once you've started, what about keeping it going and navigating those early social dynamics?
One really important thing to keep in mind is not to take it personally if someone doesn't seem very chatty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there could be a million reasons why someone isn't receptive to conversation right then, and it almost never has anything to do with your English skills.
That's reassuring.
Totally. They
But-
might just be preoccupied, having a bad day, maybe they're shy themselves, or just not in the mood. Don't assume it's about you.
Good advice. So, assuming they are open to talking, what are some ways to build a bit more rapport, maybe with acquaintances or coworkers you don't know super well yet?
Sharing short, interesting personal stories or anecdotes about something that happened to you recently can be a great way to build connection.
Okay.
The key is keeping them relatively brief and engaging. You want to avoid like long rambling stories about your boring daily routine.
Right.
But if you say, tried a cool new restaurant, saw an interesting movie, had a funny little mishap, those kinds of brief stories can be good conversation builders.
Keep it concise, keep it engaging. And didn't the source have a kind of bonus tip related to storytelling?
It did. The free tip, as they called it, was to consider sharing slightly embarrassing or self-deprecating stories sometimes.
Really? Like what?
Like talk about a minor blunder. Maybe you locked your keys in the car or had a funny travel mishap like the example of sunscreen exploding in a suitcase.
Huh, okay.
Things like that can make you seem more relatable, more human, and can often make people laugh. It lowers defenses and helps build connection, unlike, say, bragging, which often pushes people away.
Interesting. Self-deprecation as a tool for connection. Okay, so moving beyond just starting talks and introductions, what about some absolutely essential must-know English phrases for everyday life?
Yeah, the sources gave a really solid list of fundamentals. For just basic greetings, you've got hello, the more informal hi, hey, even sup, or yo.
Okay, covering the spectrum there.
For mornings, good morning, or just morning. For ending a conversation at night or going to bed, good night. And for saying goodbye, there's goodbye, bye, the slightly warmer take care, the classic have a nice day, and the very informer peace out.
A good toolkit for hellos and goodbyes. What about asking someone's name? Or if you oops forgot it.
What's your name is
Yeah.
the standard. If you need to ask again, polite ways are, sorry, what's your name? Or, excuse me, what was your name again?
Good recovery phrases.
And right after you're introduced, you have options like nice to meet you, the slightly more casual good to meet you, the enthusiastic great to meet you, and the more formal pleasure to meet you.
Different levels of formality and enthusiasm there. Checking in on someone, how are you?
Exactly. How are you is the go-to. Typical responses are like, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Mm-hmm.
The advice here was maybe instead of just a super brief, I'm fine, consider adding just a little detail about your day or week. It encourages a bit more connection.
Right, gives the other person something more to respond to. What about basic politeness? Please and thank you.
Absolutely essential. Please, for polite requests and also when responding to offers, like yes, please, thank you is crucial, obviously.
And replying to thank you.
You're welcome is standard. More casual options are no problem or even no biggie.
Got it. Agreement and disagreement, yes and no.
For yes, you have yes, yep, uh-huh, and yeah. For no, there's no, nope. And the more emphatic, not gonna happen.
Ah,
And the super versatile okay works for agreement, acknowledging something or signaling a transition. And yeah, the sorts have that funny little potential origin story about copy editors and all clear or AC maybe leading to okay.
a little bit of language trivia. What about getting attention or apologizing for minor things?
Excuse me is what you want for getting attention or squeezing past someone or a tiny interruption. And for more sincere apologies, it's I'm sorry.
Okay, practical stuff for navigating the world.
Definitely. What time is it?
Yeah.
Always useful. Asking for locations. Where is the plus location?
Yeah.
Like, where's the bank or the post office? Just remember, as we said, generally know the before city, state, or country names.
Right.
And needing the restroom. Politely. May I use the restroom? More casually. Can I go to the bathroom?
And the all-important task of ordering food.
When you're ready to order, I would like to order. Or the shorter, very common I'd like, followed by your order.
And paying.
Can I get the check, please? Or just simply, check, please. Both work perfectly fine.
Great. Finally, saying goodbye when you expect to see someone again.
You've got see you soon, the more casual see ya, or just see you. If you want to be a bit more definite, I'll see you again soon. And see you later usually implies you'll see them later the same day.
Okay. And one last one, a simple word that changes meaning based on how you say it.
Ah, yes, really.
Yeah.
With that upward inflection, it usually shows genuine interest, encourages them to keep talking.
Uh-huh.
But with a downward inflection, really, it can sometimes signal a bit of skepticism or maybe just less intense interest. Similar words work like this too, like seriously, or even just a simple oh, where your tone is everything.
Okay, wow. We have definitely covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We really have. From introducing yourself effectively, asking about others, key ways to start and keep conversations going, Plus, a whole bunch of those essential polite phrases for all sorts of everyday situations.
These fundamentals, these basic phrases, they're truly invaluable, aren't they? For connecting with English speakers, building that confidence, doesn't matter where you are or who you're talking to.
Absolutely. And maybe as a final thought for you listening, try to consciously pick just one or two of these phrases or tips to try out in your next interaction.
Even just practicing in your head.
Yeah, even just a mental rehearsal counts. And pay attention. Really listen to how native speakers use these phrases in real life. Think about which of the conversation starters feel most comfortable for your personality. A little bit of conscious practice and experimentation can really go a long way in boosting your confidence and helping you connect better with people. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ever feel that little flutter of nerves when someone asks, "Tell me about yourself"?
Oh, definitely. It's such a common question, isn't it?
It really is. So today, we're diving into exactly that, mastering the art of the self-introduction in English.
Yeah, the idea is to help you answer that question feeling, cool, calm, and collected.
Exactly.
And it's more than just a polite formality, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a skill we use constantly in all sorts of situations. Getting comfortable with it, well, it really boosts your confidence.
And helps you make a genuine connection right off the bat, I think.
Absolutely. Which is key for building stronger relationships, both personal and professional.
Totally. And let's be real, even if you're generally outgoing, those first moments meeting someone new can feel a little high stakes.
Yeah, a bit awkward sometimes.
So our aim today is pretty simple. To equip you with the know-how to answer. Tell me about yourself. With, well, both ease and accuracy.
And maybe we should start with a crucial foundation.
Go for it.
Context. Context is everything.
Ah, yes. Good point.
The way you introduce yourself at a job interview is naturally going to be quite different from how you'd chat at, say, a friend's party.
Right. Completely different vibe.
So understanding your audience, that's really the first step.
Okay, so we know why this matters. Let's get practical. Yeah. Where do we even begin? I'm thinking the most basic thing is your name.
Exactly. Couldn't be simpler, right? But there are still options.
Like?
Well, the most straightforward is probably just I am name, or maybe more commonly the contraction I'm name.
Yeah, usually sounds a bit more natural, I find.
It often does, yeah. More conversational.
You can also go with my name is name or my name's name. Those are perfectly fine too.
Yep, totally standard.
Now, what if you have a name that you prefer people use? Maybe a nickname.
Oh, that's a really important point. Good to clarify that early.
How would you suggest doing that?
Well, in a casual setting, you might say something like, my name is Beatrice, but my friends all call me B.
Nice and easy. Friendly.
Exactly. And what about in situations where maybe your given name is a bit longer or, less common, and you want to make it easier for people?
Yeah, that can be awkward if people struggle with pronunciation.
Right. So this is where a phrase like this can be really useful. My name is Yibiske, which can be a bit tricky, so please feel free to call me Weebis.
Well, that's smart. It's considerate, takes the pressure off them.
Exactly. It addresses potential pronunciation hurdles right up front and kind of puts people at ease.
That's a great tip, being mindful of others.
Okay.
Name covered. What typically comes next when you're telling someone about yourself?
Often it's location, where you're currently living or maybe where you're originally from.
Okay.
And again, there are a few different ways to express this.
Lay them on us.
You could start with the simple, I'm from country city. Again, that contraction I'm really does tend to sound more natural in everyday chat.
Right.
Or you could use your nationality as an adjective. I am Australian. I am Turkish, for example.
But you have to be careful not to mix those up.
Right. Exactly. Good point. It's I'm from Australia, not I'm from Australian. That's a common slip-up.
Okay, noted. Now, what if you say, I'm from Melbourne? That could mean you live there now, or it could be where you grew up.
Precisely. It can be a bit ambiguous sometimes.
So how do you clarify if you're living somewhere else now?
A good way to clarify your origin is to say, I come from place. That often implies, you've moved and there's some distance between where you are now and where you started.
Okay. And if you want to be really specific about your upbringing, not just origin, but where you actually grew up.
Ah, yeah. That's when you can use verbs like born and grew up.
How so?
You could say, I was born in place, or I grew up in place, or even I spent my childhood in place.
Give us an example.
For instance, I was born in Australia and spent my childhood growing up in various cities along the East Coast. It just paints a clearer picture.
Right, adds a bit more detail. What if you want to mention both where you're from and where you are now?
A nice, concise way to do that is, I'm originally from Melbourne, but now I'm based in Perth.
Simple. I like it.
Straightforward. And if you want to say how long you've been living somewhere,
Yes, that often comes up.
the present perfect tense is your friend here.
Okay.
You can say, I've been living in Perth since 2016, or I've lived in Perth for the past 4 years.
Or maybe something a bit less formal.
Yeah, you could also just say something like, I moved to Perth a few years ago.
It's amazing how many little nuances there are just for location.
Isn't it? It really makes you think about the story you're telling and choosing the right words to tell it accurately.
Definitely. Okay, so we've nailed the basics. Name, location. Now let's move into things that depend more on who you're talking to, the situation. Family feels like a big one.
Absolutely. And how much you share about your family is really a personal call.
Right. Depends heavily on the context.
Totally. You don't want to launch into a huge family history 5 seconds after meeting someone, unless they ask, of course.
Good point. Avoid the overshare. So say you're married.
A simple way to mention that is, we've been married since time date. We've been married since August last year.
Okay. And what if you're in a long-term relationship but not actually married?
If you want to mention how long, you could say, we've been together for time period.
Like we've been together for 5 years.
Exactly. It's funny, English doesn't really have one perfect, universally accepted word for a long-term partner before marriage, does it?
No, it's true. Partner seems pretty common now, though.
It is, yeah. Partner is probably the most common solution these days. So you might say, we've been together for 11 years now and we're engaged, but no wedding date set just yet. That gives the picture.
Right. What about just talking about who you live with right now?
You could simply say, we're a family of 5. Or maybe, I live here with my family. There are 5 of us.
And if you want to clarify the size of the family you grew up in.
Then you'd say, I grew up in a family of 5. That points clearly to your childhood family.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And kids. How do people usually mention children?
Pretty straightforward. I have a 7-year-old son, or I'm a single parent. Maybe I'm a mother of twins.
And adding a little extra detail can make it more interesting.
Definitely. Adding a little tidbit can make your introduction more engaging, more human. For instance, I'm a single mom with twin girls, and they just started school this year. It's been quite an adventure.
Yeah, that little detail makes you more relatable, give someone something to ask about.
Mm-hmm.
What about brothers and sisters?
You can say, I've got 3 sisters, for example. The word siblings is quite useful here.
How so?
Well, siblings is a handy umbrella term for both brothers and sisters. So if you have 2 brothers and a sister, you'd say you have 3 siblings.
Okay, so I have 3 siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Means there are 3 other children besides me.
Correct. If you want to include yourself in the total count, you'd phrase it like, I am one of 4 siblings.
Ah, subtle difference. And if you don't have any?
Simple. I'm an only child.
Got it. And how do you bring up the wider family, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, that whole crew, without listing them all?
The term extended family is your friend there.
Right.
You could say something like, I live in Perth now, but most of my extended family is back in Melbourne. It acknowledges them without getting bogged down in details.
Okay, that's really helpful for family stuff. Let's switch gears a bit. Another area that often comes up. Interests and hobbies.
Yes. And it's important to maybe keep these separate from your work life for now. We'll get to work talk later.
Good idea. So how do you talk about hobbies naturally?
Well, a good starting point is, I enjoy noun, or I enjoy verbing, the gerund form. For example, I enjoy baking.
So I enjoy baking, not I enjoy to bake.
Exactly. After enjoy as the main verb, you usually use the ing form if another verb follows.
Okay, what about like or love?
With like or love, you actually have a bit more flexibility. You can say, I love playing football, or I love to play football. Both are correct.
Ah, okay. Good to know. And is there a more sort of natural way to express a really strong interest in something?
Yeah, you could say, I'm really into something, like I'm really into jazz music.
I'm really into, yeah, that sounds natural.
It conveys a genuine passion, I think.
And having a few interesting hobbies ready is so useful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially for those, tell us something interesting about yourself. Icebreakers you get in classes or meetings.
Oh, absolutely. Saves that awkward silence. And actually, a fun way to reveal a unique hobby or maybe a talent is to use a phrase like, one thing you might not know about me is...
Oh, like that.
Yeah. One thing you might not know about me is interesting fact hobby achievement. For instance, one thing you might not know about me is I absolutely love hosting dinner parties.
That's great. It prompts curiosity.
Yeah.
That makes you think, okay, what's my interesting fact?
Exactly. It can be a real conversation starter, gives people something specific to ask about.
Right, something to latch onto. Now let's tackle the big one, work. This comes up a lot, obviously.
And it's usually about what you do and maybe where you do it.
And accuracy with prepositions and those little articles, a and ye, seems really key here.
Couldn't agree more. Those small words matter. So you typically say, I am a BTN job position.
Need that article.
Yes. Remember, job titles are usually countable nouns, so they need a or an. For example, I'm a graphic designer, or I'm an engineer. Please don't forget that article.
Right, not I'm engineer. Got it. What if you're the only person with that title in your company?
Good question. Then you can use the, like I am the CEO of a tech company, or I am the owner of a florist. It signifies a unique, singular position.
Okay, and what if you want to talk more broadly about the industry you're in, not your specific title?
Then you'd use I work in industry, like I work in marketing, or I work in construction. Maybe I work in the field of design.
And how do you mention the specific company you work for?
You generally use either at or for, followed by the company name or type of company.
Examples?
I work at Vogue, or I work at a small architecture firm, or I work for the government. Both at and for work well there.
Okay. And if you're your own boss, run your own show.
Several options. You could say I work for myself, or I'm self-employed, or maybe I run my own business. All perfectly clear.
Great. Those cover most job situations. Now, what about education and qualifications? This seems more context dependent too.
Definitely. This usually comes up more in professional settings, right? Like job interviews, networking events, that kind of thing.
Makes sense. So how would you phrase it?
You could say, I have a degree in field of study. For example, I have a degree in architecture, or I have a degree in environmental science.
Straightforward. And if you want to highlight that you're officially qualified in a certain profession, like you've passed the exams, got the license.
Right. You can say I'm a qualified job title. For example, I'm a qualified engineer, or I'm a qualified accountant.
Note to use the job title there, not the field of study.
Exactly. And adding qualified makes it explicit that you've met the professional standards. This might be really relevant in, say, a job interview.
But probably unnecessary detail at a party.
Probably. At a party, just saying I'm an engineer would likely be enough. You don't need the qualified part unless it comes up specifically.
Okay, what if you're currently studying? Still in the process.
You can just say, I'm studying what you're studying. Like, I'm studying applied science, or I'm studying for my MBA.
And for higher degrees, like a PhD.
You could say, I'm completing a PhD in your research area. For instance, I'm completing a PhD in public health or renewable energy.
What if you're near the end of your studies? Almost done.
You could say, I'm in my final year of your degree, like I'm in my final year of an economics degree.
Or more generally.
Or just, I'm nearing the end of my studies. That works too.
And what about less formal training, like online courses or workshops to boost skills?
Yeah, that's common these days. You might say something like, I'm currently taking an online course to upskill in marketing, or I'm doing an extra course to improve my skills in project management. Shows initiative.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of individual pieces. Name, location, family, hobbies, job, education, like puzzle pieces.
Exactly.
Now, how do you actually put it all together so it sounds natural, like a flowing conversation, and not just a list of facts?
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? The trick is really to weave these different bits of information together into longer, flowing sentences. Use connecting words and phrases and but, so, also, although, currently. Think about it as telling a mini story about yourself, rather than just reciting bullet points.
Could you maybe give us an example? Pull a few of these elements together.
Sure. Okay, let's imagine. I might say something like, Hi, I'm Expert Speaker's name. I'm originally from Expert Speaker's origin, but I've been living here in current location for about duration now with my partner. In my free time, I'm really into hobby.
Okay, keep going.
Professionally, I work as a profession at company type name. And maybe something people don't know about me is that I have interesting fact hobby.
See, that flows so much better than just name, X, location, Y, Job, Z.
Right. It connects the dots. Sounds more human.
So what should our listeners do now with all this great info? What's the next step?
Well, I think the most important thing is to actually take some time to think about what you want to share about yourself in different situations.
Right, tailor it.
Exactly. Maybe jot down some notes for different contexts, professional, casual. Then, and this is crucial, practice saying it out loud.
Not just reading it silently.
Yeah, definitely out loud.
Yeah.
Do it regularly,
Yeah.
even just for a few minutes each day. Pay attention to how it sounds, how it feels coming out of your mouth.
Felt comfortable with the words.
Precisely. This builds confidence and helps it sound less, rehearsed when you actually need it. It's like warming up before you perform.
Like warming up your vocal cords for a chat.
Exactly. And please, don't wait until you feel it's absolutely perfect before you try it out in real conversations.
Oh, yeah. Just jump in.
Yeah. Even if it feels a little awkward at first, and it might, the more you do it, the more natural it will become. Practice makes progress.
So the ultimate goal is?
The goal is that when someone asks, so tell me about yourself, you can respond smoothly, confidently, without that split second of, oh no, what do I say? You're prepared.
Fantastic. We really hope this deep dive has given you some practical insights and tools to feel more confident and comfortable introducing yourself in English.
Yeah, me too. And maybe as a final thought for everyone listening, I'd encourage you to really think about what makes you unique. What's a memorable detail about your background or your interests, or even just a small quirk?
Something that stands out.
Exactly. How could you weave that little something into your introduction to make it truly stand out and maybe spark a real connection? That's often the magic ingredient, I think.
You know that feeling, right? Someone just kind of casually asks, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
And suddenly, even for, native speakers like us, it feels like, bam, spotlight.
Oh, absolutely. That little pause while your brain scrambles, like, okay, what do they actually want to hear? How much is too much?
Exactly. Well, today we're going to really dig into that. We've got this great transcript. It's from a YouTube video, High Level Listening Advanced English Podcast.
Yeah.
Season 2, Episode 19. And it's all about introducing yourself in English. The vocab, the grammar, the stuff you need for everyday life.
It's such a good source because it's just a natural chat, isn't it? Between Mark from the UK and Kat from the US. They give their own examples of how they'd introduce themselves, like in a casual situation.
Right, and then they break it down.
Yeah, they look at the words they chose, the expressions, the grammar bits, even the little differences between, American and British ways of saying things. It's quite subtle sometimes.
Yeah, it really is. And so our mission here, especially for you, the learner, is to pull out the really practical, useful bits from their conversation. We want to help you introduce yourself, not just correctly, but smoothly, confidently.
Yeah, get beyond those textbook phrases.
Exactly. See how native speakers actually do it. Think of it as a shortcut to sounding more natural, maybe making a better connection when you meet people.
Okay, so where do we start?
Well, the first thing that jumped out at me was Kat's reaction right at the beginning. She says, putting me on the spot here.
Yes. That phrase is perfect, isn't it? Putting me on the spot. It just nails that feeling of being suddenly surprised, under pressure to say something smart.
Totally relatable.
And it leads right into them talking about those little noises we make, The
filler words, yeah. They make a good point about them. It's often when you're thinking buying time.
Right, processing. Whereas might show a little more uncertainty.
Maybe. And it could be surprise or maybe remembering something.
Yeah, and the key thing they stress is that these aren't errors you have to stamp out completely. Native speakers use them all the time. It's just part of talking.
Right. It's about being aware, maybe, so they don't, take over. But they're natural pauses.
And that phrase, again, putting me on the spot, it almost builds a little connection, doesn't it? It acknowledges the slight awkwardness. Very human.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you get past that initial uh-oh moment. How do you actually structure what you say?
Well, Kat gives a pretty simple framework. She suggests basically name, job, hometown, and interests.
Okay, the core stuff.
Yeah, and Mark sort of echoes that. He says, when someone asks you to tell them about yourself, that's usually what they're curious about, where you're from, what you do, and, what you like doing.
Makes sense. It gives someone the basic coordinates to, place you. And they also touch on that slight difference between tell us about yourself and just introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah, that's a good distinction. Understanding that helps you know how much detail to give. Introduce yourself often feels a bit more formal, maybe more focused on just name and job title.
Right, like in a meeting or something.
Exactly. Whereas tell us about yourself feels like more of an invitation, doesn't it? Okay, tell me a bit more your background, your interests. It's asking for a slightly more personal picture.
Definitely signals more openness. Okay, so let's look at how they talk about where they're from. Origins. Kat says, I'm originally from Texas, born and raised in Houston.
Right. Originally from. That's super useful because it pins down where you started, your roots, even if you live somewhere else now.
Establishes the starting point.
And then born and raised. Mark points out this one has a bit of maybe a southern U.S. flavor to it.
Yeah, he does mention that. It implies a really strong connection to that one place, doesn't it? Like your whole upbringing was there.
It does paint that picture. Mark gives his version, more maybe typically British. He says, I'm from the UK, from a small town just about 40 minutes east of London.
See, that's clever. He starts broad the country.
Yeah.
Then narrows it down. And using London as a reference point is smart if your town isn't famous. Gives people a map reference.
Exactly. It helps people locate you mentally. He also offers another option. I grew up in the UK.
Ah, the past tense there. Grew up.
Yeah, that little shift implies, okay, my childhood was there, but maybe I'm not there now. It hints at a move.
Subtle, but it does. Okay, moving on to work. How do they talk about their jobs? Kat's example is, I worked as a teacher for students learning English as a second language for about 12 years now.
Okay, key thing there. I've worked. Present perfect tense. That tells you it started in the past 12 years ago, but it's still happening now. It's ongoing.
Right. If she'd said, I worked, past simple, it would sound like maybe she stopped doing it.
Exactly. So that I've worked connects the past to the present. Shows current relevance.
And she explains ESL2, English as a second language.
Yeah.
Focusing on daily communication skills.
Which ties into their podcast focus, yeah. Mark says, I work as an ESL teacher, and I've been doing that since 2012.
So, similar structure. I work as a very standard way to state your job.
And again, present perfect. I've been doing that. But he adds since 2012, gives a specific start date.
Yeah, adds that timeline detail. And he uses, I've been doing that, the present perfect continuous.
Right. They mentioned this tense can sometimes emphasize the, continuous nature of the activity, the ongoing effort.
And I liked how they pointed out that doing that is just a really natural way to refer back to the job. Less clunky than repeating, I've been working as an ESL teacher.
Yeah, much smoother, keeps the flow. And they suggest a great follow-up question, too.
Oh, yeah.
How long have you been doing that? Simple, polite way to show interest after someone mentions their job, especially if you're not sure how long they've been at it. It invites them to share a bit more if they want.
That's a really useful one. Good conversational tool. Okay, then they get into career changes. Someone asks, did you always want to be a teacher?
And Kat replies, funny enough, I actually went to school for marketing all those years ago.
Funny enough. Great little phrase. Signals something unexpected is coming.
Totally. And went to school for marketing. That's the standard way we talk about, your college major, right?
Yeah. And she says, but I kind of had a career shift when I realized I was much more passionate about teaching.
Career shift. That's a nice, clear term for making a big change in your professional direction. Moving from one path to another, maybe because your interests changed. It acknowledges that careers aren't always straight lines.
Very true. Lots of people can relate to that.
Definitely. Then Mark talks about his passion for his work still. He says, I still love doing it.
Emphasizes the continued enjoyment after all those years.
Yeah. It's taken me to so many amazing places, and I've been able to meet a lot of wonderful teachers and students along the way.
Again, notice the present perfect. It has taken me. I have been able to meet.
Yeah, highlighting all the good stuff, the opportunities his ongoing career has brought him over time. It really adds that personal layer.
Shows the impact it's had on his life.
Exactly. Okay, what about places they've lived or visited?
Cap says something like, I've sort of lived all over France, New Zealand, South Korea.
Lived all over. Yeah, that's a good one. It conveys you've lived in several places in a region without needing to list every single town. Give a sense of movement.
Yeah. And she adds, although I used to teach mainly in schools, I've been teaching online for a number of years now.
Okay, used to. That's key. Used to teach in schools means that was the past situation, but it's not true anymore.
Right. Contrast the past with the present.
Using although. And then she explains the current situation. I've been teaching online for a number of years now. Present, perfect continuous again, showing it's the current ongoing thing.
Got it. And Mark.
He says, I was lucky enough to spend most of my 20s in Asia and Eastern Europe.
Past simple there. Was spend. Because his 20s are over.
Right. Completed period in the past. He also says, I made the jump to online teaching a while ago.
Made the jump. That's quite evocative, isn't it? Suggests a definite decision, maybe a big change.
Yeah, like leaping from one thing to another. And a while ago, nice and vague for pastime.
Keeps it simple. Then he says, I've been living in Mexico for the last few years.
Present, perfect, continuous, current, ongoing situation.
And he ends with that little British phrase, although, of course, I still pop back and visit the UK when I can.
Yeah, pop back. Very natural British English for making a quick visit home. Adds a nice personal touch.
Okay, finally, interests, hobbies. How do they approach that?
Well, Kat asks, what do you like to do for fun nowadays? Mark uses in my free time. Similar idea.
Nowadays. Good word to talk about current habits. Yeah, Kat's answer. I'm still very much into traveling, cooking, learning new languages, meeting new people and stuff like that.
Right. Still shows these are ongoing interests, and I'm very much into great way to show strong enthusiasm.
Yeah, much better than just I like.
Definitely. And stuff like that is so common, isn't it? Just a casual way to round off a list without listing everything.
Supernatural. Mark lists his using gerunds, the ending forms, reading, computer games, motorsports, and traveling.
Very typical for listing activities, which sometimes go hand in hand.
Go hand in hand. Good idiom. Meaning they're connected, they happen together.
Yeah, like travel and motorsports, maybe.
Could be. And he finishes his whole introduction really simply. That's about it, really.
Perfect ending. Casual, signals you're done, not abrupt.
So wrapping up the key takeaways for you, the learner. Notice how they use those filler words like, naturally, it's okay.
Yeah, don't stress about eliminating them entirely. And think about that basic structure. Origin, work, interests. It's a solid starting point.
And remember the difference between introduce yourself, maybe more formal, name, job, and tell us about yourself, invites more detail.
Definitely. And pay attention to those verb tenses, especially the present perfect, I have worked, and present perfect continuous, I have been working. They really help show if something is finished or if it started in the past and is still relevant or ongoing now. Huge difference in meaning sometimes.
Those nuances make a big difference in sounding fluent.
So we really encourage you to try using some of these phrases, this kind of structure, next time you introduce yourself. Might feel a bit weird at first, but, practice helps it become second nature.
Absolutely. And maybe take a moment now to think about your answers. Where are you originally from? What is it you do? What are you into nowadays?
Yeah, think about how you'd phrase it. And that brings up a final thought, really. How does getting comfortable with these sort of nuances of self-introduction, how does that do more than just convey facts? How does it maybe open the door to, deeper connections, better conversations when you're using English? Something to think about.
Ever get that feeling you might be using a word wrong, but you're too afraid to ask?
Oh, yeah.
Well, fear no more. Because today we're diving deep into 15 words that even fluent English speakers mess up. We've got a YouTube script here all about leveling up your vocabulary. And you might be surprised by some of these common mistakes.
It is fascinating, though, how some of these errors stem from subtle distinctions that are easy to miss in casual conversation.
Okay, let's unpack this. We'll start with some beginner traps. Words that seem straightforward, but can be surprisingly tricky. I'll be honest, the word literally is one I hear misused all the time.
Yep.
Just the other day, someone told me they were literally dying from how much they had to do that week.
Yes. Literally seems to be a word that's been taken hostage by hyperbole.
So remind us, what should literally mean? Why is it important to use it correctly?
Literally means something actually happened, exactly as stated.
Yeah.
It emphasizes the reality of a situation, not an exaggeration.
Right.
While your friend might have felt overwhelmed, they weren't literally dying.
Right.
You see, using literally correctly makes sure your words carry their intended weight. It's about precision and clarity, especially in an age where misinformation can spread so easily.
That's a really good point. The impact on communication is huge. Okay, another beginner word that trips people up is unique. I once saw a store advertising a sale on very unique items. Something about that just felt off.
That's because unique means one of a kind.
Right.
Inherently special. It stands alone.
Right.
So adding modifiers like very or quite is redundant and actually weakens the impact of the word.
So instead of saying something is very unique, how can we highlight that specialness in everyday conversation?
Let the word unique speak for itself.
Okay.
You could say that painting is truly unique or her style is unique. You're emphasizing the inherent specialness without needing to qualify it further.
That's so interesting. I can see how that subtle shift makes a big difference. Even these beginner words have hidden depths. You really have to think about their true meaning.
Absolutely. And that's what makes language so fascinating. Now, prepare to have some assumptions challenged because some words have meanings completely different from what most people assume.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example of one of these words.
Let's start with irony.
Okay.
Many people confuse irony with simple coincidence or bad luck. For example, someone might say, "It's so ironic that I won the lottery and then got hit by a car."
So winning the lottery and then getting hit by a car, that's just bad luck, not irony.
Yeah.
What makes a situation truly ironic?
True irony involves a situation where the outcome is the opposite of what was expected, often with a humorous or sarcastic undertone. A classic example would be a fire station burning down. It's not just about unfortunate timing, it's about a surprising reversal of expectations.
Wow, that makes so much sense. It's not just about something bad happening. It's about the unexpected nature of the situation.
You see, understanding irony helps us analyze situations more deeply. It's not just about bad luck. It's about recognizing the unexpected and sometimes absurd nature of life.
Speaking of unexpected twists, let's talk about a word. Often misused in situations with high stakes. Alibis. I feel like I hear people using alibi as a synonym for any kind of excuse.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have a good alibi.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a common mistake. People might say, "I didn't finish the project, but I have a good alibi."
Wait, so if it's not just any excuse, what makes a real alibi? I'm genuinely confused.
An alibi has a very specific legal meaning.
Okay.
It refers to proof that someone was somewhere else at the time a crime was committed, demonstrating their innocence. It's not just any excuse. It's evidence that clears someone of suspicion.
So using alibi to explain why you didn't finish a project wouldn't really make sense.
Exactly. Using alibi in casual conversation when you simply mean excuse can actually undermine your credibility. It shows a lack of precision in your language.
Okay, this is making me rethink how I use these words. What other intermediate words are lurking out there, ready to trip us up?
How about a word that's often confused with its near opposite? Disinterested. Many people use disinterested to mean uninterested or bored. For instance, someone might say, "I was completely disinterested in that meeting."
Disinterested. If it doesn't mean bored or uninterested, then what does it actually mean?
Disinterested actually describes someone who is impartial or unbiased, free from personal stake or interest in a situation. A good example would be a judge who must remain disinterested in the outcome of a case.
Okay.
They can't be swayed by personal opinions or biases.
So if I wanted to say that I found the meeting boring, disinterested wouldn't be the right word to use.
Precisely. In that case, uninterested or bored would be more accurate.
Right.
Disinterested implies neutrality and objectivity. It's about being impartial, not uncaring.
I never realized how a single word could completely change the tone and meaning of a sentence. It's all about understanding those subtle but powerful nuances.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here to explore. Are you ready to be bemused by the next word?
Bemused. Okay, you've definitely got my attention. What's so tricky about this one?
People often think bemused means amused or entertained.
Okay.
You might hear someone say, "I was bemused by his silly jokes."
So if bemused doesn't mean amused, then what's the real meaning?
Bemused actually means puzzled, bewildered, or even slightly confused. Think of it as a state of mild perplexity, for example. You might be bemused by a riddle you can't solve,
Well,
or a strange event you don't fully understand.
so it's not about laughing at a joke. It's about that feeling of, wait, what just happened? That makes a lot of sense.
Imagine someone watching a magic trick,
Right.
their brow furrowed, a slight smile playing on their lips.
Yeah.
That's bemusement. It's not amusement, but a fascinated perplexity.
Okay, now I'm really starting to understand the difference.
Uh-huh.
Bemused is a much richer word than I realized.
Mm-hmm.
It's about that space between amusement and confusion.
Exactly. And these subtle distinctions can make a big difference in how your message is received. Are you ready for our final intermediate word?
Bring it on. I'm ready to tackle anything.
All right. Let's explore a word that's often misused to describe something grand or impressive. Enormity. People often use enormity to emphasize the sheer size or scope of something. You might hear someone say, "I was overwhelmed by the enormity of the project."
That's how I usually use it. But I have a feeling it doesn't quite mean what I think it means. What's the real meaning?
While enormity can relate to size, its primary meaning leans towards something more serious and weighty.
Okay.
It often refers to extreme wickedness, outrageousness, or the sheer gravity of a situation,
Right.
particularly in a moral or ethical context.
So it's less about physical size And more about the weight of the implications.
Precisely. For instance, if you were discussing a horrific crime, you might speak of the enormity of the act to emphasize its moral depravity and the severity of its consequences.
Wow, that puts the word in a whole new light. It's not just about something being big, it's about something being profoundly impactful, often in a negative sense.
Exactly. It's a word that carries a lot of weight, both literally and figuratively.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground already. And I'm starting to feel the enormity and the true sense of the word, of all these linguistic nuances. What's next on our journey?
Next, we'll be venturing into the realm of advanced words, where the nuances become even more intricate. Are you ready to level up your vocabulary even further?
Absolutely. I'm eager to see what other linguistic gems await us in this deep dive into words.
Right.
It'd be great.
Awesome. Fasten your seatbelts, because these advanced words can be real brain twisters. They're the ones that often pop up in intellectual discussions or professional settings, and misusing them can unfortunately make you sound less credible.
Okay, I'm ready to face the advanced word challenge head on. Let's start with one that I've definitely struggled with in the past.
Decimate.
Decimate is fascinating because its common usage has drifted quite far from its original meaning. People often use it as a synonym for completely destroy, like saying the hurricane decimated the coastal towns. Yeah, I've definitely heard it used that way. But if it doesn't mean to completely destroy, then what does it actually mean?
Decimate has a very specific historical root. It comes from the ancient Roman practice of punishing mutinous troops by killing 1 out of every 10 soldiers. So the original meaning of decimate is to reduce by 1/10, not to obliterate completely.
Wow, I had no idea. That's a pretty grim origin story for a word. So using decimate to describe the total destruction of a town wouldn't be quite right.
Exactly. It's a case of hyperbole overtaking precision. While the impact of a hurricane can be devastating, it's unlikely to literally reduce a town's population by exactly 1/10.
This is why I love these deep dives. You uncover these hidden layers of meaning that we often miss in everyday conversation. It's like learning a secret code.
This word's bloody history reminds us that language carries the weight of the past. Even today, decimate suggests a severe calculated reduction, not total destruction.
Okay, what other advanced words are waiting to be decoded?
Let's tackle one that often gets misused in academic circles: peruse.
Peruse. I'll admit I've been guilty of using this one incorrectly myself. I always thought it meant to quickly skim through something.
That's a very common misconception. In reality, peruse means to read thoroughly and carefully. It implies a close and attentive examination of a text, not a hasty glance.
So if I said I perused the report before the meeting, it would mean I'd given it a very close read, not just skim the headings.
Precisely. Using peruse correctly conveys a sense of diligence and attention to detail. It suggests you've really absorbed the information.
This is another one of those aha moments. I'm realizing that using these advanced words correctly can signal a certain level of intellectual rigor. It shows you're not just skimming the surface.
Exactly. It's about choosing words that accurately reflect the depth of your engagement with the topic.
All right, bring on the next advanced word challenge. I'm feeling more and more confident with each one we tackle.
Let's see if you can crack the code on this one. Nonplussed.
Nonplussed. This one seems tricky. I've heard it used to describe someone who's calm and collected under pressure. Like, even though the presentation went wrong, she remained nonplussed.
That's a clever guess, but it's actually the opposite. Nonplussed describes a state of being surprised and confused, often to the point of speechlessness. It's that feeling of being caught off guard and unsure how to react.
Wow. So it's almost like being speechless with shock.
Exactly. Nonplussed implies a momentary loss of composure, a sense of being bewildered. It's that deer in the headlights feeling.
That makes so much more sense. I can see how misusing this word could lead to some awkward situations.
Indeed, it highlights the importance of understanding the nuances of these advanced words. They can have a big impact on how our message is perceived.
Okay, what other advanced word adventures await us? I'm ready to expand my vocabulary horizons.
Let's explore a word that often gets used in a way that diminishes its true impact. Plethora.
Plethora.
I usually think of this word as meaning a lot of something, in a positive way, like there was a plethora of fun activities to choose from at the festival. That's a common interpretation. But plethora carries a slightly different nuance. While it does mean an abundance of something, it often implies an excessive or overwhelming amount.
Okay.
It can sometimes even suggest a sense of burden or inconvenience.
Interesting. So it's not just about having a lot of something. It's about having maybe too much of it, like it's overflowing.
Precisely. Imagine a situation where you're bombarded with information or faced with an overwhelming number of choices. That sense of being inundated can be captured by the word plethora.
So if I were to say, I have a plethora of emails to
Okay.
respond to, it would imply that I'm feeling a bit swamped by them, not necessarily excited about having a full inbox.
Exactly. It's about that tipping point where abundance starts to feel like excess. It's about that too much of a good thing feeling.
I'm starting to see how using plethora correctly can add a layer of sophistication to my descriptions. It's a much more nuanced way of expressing abundance than just saying a lot.
It's about choosing words that convey not just the quantity, but also the impact of that quantity.
This is making me realize how much I've taken these words for granted, what other advanced words are hiding in plain sight, waiting to be understood.
Let's delve into one that's often misused in discussions about facts and information.
Factoid.
Factoid. This one seems pretty straightforward. I always thought it just meant a small or trivial fact.
That's how it's commonly used, but its original meaning is a bit more nuanced, even controversial. The term factoid was actually coined to describe something that appears to be a fact, but is actually false or unsubstantiated.
Right, really? That's a completely different meaning.
That's the risk with using factoid in its original sense. It implies a degree of skepticism or even doubt about the validity of the information being presented. It can be a way of highlighting that something may sound like a fact, but it hasn't actually been proven true.
This is a perfect example of how language can evolve and shift in meaning over time. It's important to be aware of both the common usage and the original intent behind a word. You're absolutely right. Language is a living, breathing thing that constantly adapts and changes. Our goal is to be aware of those changes and use words in a way that is both accurate and effective.
So how can we use factoid in a way that doesn't accidentally spread misinformation?
If you're unsure of the accuracy of a piece of information, it's best to avoid using factoid altogether. You could say something like, here's an interesting tidbit, or this might be a bit of trivia, but this avoids any implication that the information might be false.
That's really helpful advice. Okay, bring on the next advanced word. I'm ready to conquer some more linguistic complexities.
Let's tackle a word that often causes confusion in discussions and debates. Moot.
Moot? I've always thought of this word as meaning irrelevant or pointless. Like that argument is moot because the decision has already been made.
That's a common understanding, but it's not entirely accurate. While moot can relate to something that's no longer relevant, its original meaning is a bit more nuanced. It originally referred to a matter that is open for debate or discussion.
So if a topic is moot, it's not necessarily pointless. It just means there's room for further discussion or consideration.
Precisely. Imagine a legal case where the circumstances change, making the original point of contention no longer relevant to the outcome. The issue might be considered moot, not because it was unimportant, but because it's no longer central to the case.
That's a really helpful clarification. So it's less about the topic being irrelevant and more about its significance having shifted or diminished.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging that the context has changed, and the original point of debate may no longer be the primary focus.
I'm definitely feeling more enlightened than moot after tackling that one. What other advanced word adventures await us?
Let's wrap up our exploration of advanced words with a pair that often trips people up: infer and imply.
Infer and imply, the classic conundrum. I know these words are related to drawing conclusions, but I often mix them up.
It's a common confusion. The key difference lies in who is doing the action. The speaker or writer implies something, meaning they suggest or hint at something without stating it directly. The listener or reader infers something, meaning they draw a conclusion based on what is implied.
So if I were to say, it's getting late, I might be implying that it's time to go, even though I haven't explicitly said so.
Exactly. And if you, as the listener, understood my implication, you would have correctly inferred my meaning.
I see. So it's a two-way street. The speaker sends out a subtle signal, and the listener picks up on that signal and draws a conclusion.
Precisely. It's like a subtle dance of communication where meaning is conveyed through suggestion and interpretation.
This distinction is so subtle, but it's crucial for clear communication. Misusing these words can lead to all sorts of misunderstandings.
Absolutely. Mastering the difference between infer and imply is essential for navigating conversations and interpreting written texts accurately. It's about understanding both sides of the communication equation.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. It's amazing how much depth and complexity there is to these seemingly simple words.
And we've only just scratched the surface. But I hope you're starting to see how understanding the nuances of language, can empower you to communicate with greater clarity and precision.
I'm definitely feeling a lot more confident about using these words correctly. It's like a whole new world of linguistic possibilities has opened up.
And that's the beauty of language learning. It's an ongoing journey of discovery and refinement. Are you ready for a quick challenge to test your newfound knowledge?
Absolutely. Bring it on. All right. Hit me with that word challenge. I'm ready to put my knowledge to the test.
Okay. Let's see if you can recall the true meaning of nonplussed. Without looking back at our discussion, take a moment to think about it.
Okay. No peeking. I think I've got it. Nonplussed means to be surprised and confused, almost to the point of speechlessness. It's like that feeling of being completely thrown off guard and not knowing how to react.
That's absolutely correct. You've successfully decoded nonplussed. It seems our deep dive has truly expanded your vocabulary horizons.
I'm feeling pretty proud of myself right now. This whole experience has been eye-opening. I've realized that using words correctly isn't just about sounding smart. It's about communicating effectively and ensuring that my message is understood.
It's about wielding the power of language with precision and care. Choosing words that accurately reflect not only what we want to say, but also the subtle nuances of meaning we wish to convey.
You know, it's funny because I used to think that vocabulary was just about memorizing definitions. But this deep dive has shown me that it's so much more than that. It's about understanding the history, the etymology, the subtle shades of meaning that make each word unique.
It's about recognizing that words are not static, but dynamic. They evolve over time, their meanings shifting and adapting to reflect the changing world around us.
And that's what makes language so fascinating. It's a living, breathing entity that connects us to the past, informs our present, and shapes our future.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you to continue exploring the fascinating world of language. Pay attention to the words you use, the words you encounter, and the way they impact your understanding of the world.
I know I will. This has been such a rewarding journey. I'm walking away with a newfound appreciation for the power of words and the importance of using them correctly.
Remember, language is a gift, a tool that allows us to connect, create, and inspire. Let's use it wisely.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
Happy wordsmithing. Okay, so let's be real for a sec. Small talk, right? It can be like the most awkward thing ever. Like when you're stuck in a situation and you know you should be chatting, but your mind just goes blank. Anyone else? Feel me on that. But get this. What if I told you that this deep dive could actually turn that dread into pure confidence? And we're going to do it using a source you'd never expect. A video script, get this, for people learning English.
I know, right? Sounds a little out there. But seriously, this script is full of stuff that goes way deeper than just language. It's like a secret masterclass in how humans connect, hidden inside an English lesson.
Okay, I got to admit, when you first mentioned this source, I was kind of like, how can something for total beginners help someone who's already fluent?
That's fair, totally. But the cool thing here is, by breaking small talk down into these simple steps, it actually shows you the psychology behind how we connect. Like, it's a cheat sheet for building rapport, even if you never needed help with English in the first place.
So it's more about understanding the, deeper game, not just memorizing lines.
Exactly. For example, the script makes a big deal about greetings and weather talk, stuff we might think is just filler.
Yeah, I always thought that stuff was kind of pointless.
Right. But they actually serve a super important purpose. Like, humans are literally wired to bond over shared experiences.
Okay.
Even something as simple as complaining about the heat or, whatever the weather's doing.
Okay, yeah, I guess I can see that.
It creates that instant common ground, that we're in this together feeling, which is huge for starting any kind of connection.
Wow, that's actually so true. I never thought about it that way.
And the script goes even further. Instead of those boring old greetings like, "Hi, how are you?" it gives you phrases that fit the specific situation so you get a better response.
Oh, I like where this is going. Give me an example.
So say you're at a party. Instead of that robotic, "Hi, how are you?" try something like, "What brings you here?"
Way more interesting, right?
Way more. It's like you're actually interested, not just saying words. Exactly. It shows you're paying attention and they actually get to share something about themselves. It's what they call a strong bid in, like conversation analysis stuff. Each thing we say is a bid to connect.
Ooh, I'm digging this bidding concept. So we're all just out here trying to make the strongest bid to connect.
Totally. And this script is giving us all the winning moves. Another one they have is, instead of just saying nice weather, you could say something like, "This weather's crazy, right?"
It's like inviting the other person in on the joke. I like it. So it's making small talk feel, I don't know, less robotic. But what really stood out to me was the role-playing part.
Ah, yes. That's where the magic really happens. The people who made this script, they get it. Knowing the right words isn't enough. You got to actually practice using them. And role-playing is the best way to do that.
But what if you don't have someone to practice with? Isn't that kind of, I don't know, weird to do alone?
For sure. But you can totally do it in your head. It's called mental rehearsal. Basically, you just picture yourself in different situations.
Hold on, so you're saying by just imagining myself rocking these small talk moments, I'm actually getting better at it in real life?
You got it. Might sound a little strange, but neuroscientists have found that when you rehearse something mentally, your brain fires up the same way it does when you're actually doing the thing.
No way. That's so cool. It's like training your brain for social situations, like a cheat code for confidence. I'm already feeling less terrified about networking events or, just parties in general.
It's crazy, right? How powerful our brains are. Like, this script really shows you how to use that power to, level up your social skills.
I like that, level up. So we've talked about greetings, weather talk, even practicing in your head. What else does this script have up its sleeve?
Okay, so one thing that really impressed me was the questions. They go way beyond those typical boring questions like, where are you from? Or what do you do? The usual suspects.
Yeah, those can be so snooze fest sometimes.
Right. Instead, they give you all these questions that are actually interesting, designed to, spark real conversations.
Okay, I'm all about those real conversations. Tell me more. Give me the good stuff.
So instead of asking, what do you do? Which can feel kind of like a job interview, they suggest asking, what do you like to do for fun?
I mean, that's a classic for a reason, right? It gets people talking about what they're actually passionate about.
Exactly. It's like you're inviting them to show you their real selves, not just their, LinkedIn profile. And if you really want to go deeper, you could try something like, what's the most interesting thing you've done lately?
Ooh, I like that one. It's like a sneak peek into their adventures. You might even discover you have some cool stuff in common.
Totally. Plus, it shows you're actually curious about them, not just trying to fill the silence. And they even have specific questions for different situations. Like, if you're at a dinner party, you could ask, have you tried any good restaurants lately?
Perfect. Everyone loves talking about food. Instant conversation starter, right there.
It's true. It's something we can all relate to, like enjoying a good meal. Okay, so we've covered greetings, weather talk, asking interesting questions, even mental rehearsal. But what about when you're ready to, make your escape? Does this script help with that too?
Yeah, like how do you end a conversation without being rude?
Don't worry, they got you covered. They have a bunch of different closing phrases depending on the situation. From a simple, it was nice talking to you, to something more like, hey, we should grab coffee sometime.
Oh, I love that they include those follow-up suggestions.
Yeah.
Sometimes you really do click with someone, and it's good to have a way to, keep things going.
Exactly. It shows you're confident and interested, which is always a good look. And even if they can't meet up, it still leaves a good impression. They'll remember you as someone who actually wanted to connect.
Yeah, it's like planting a seed, right? You never know where those initial conversations might lead. What about those times when you just need a quick, casual exit, though, like you're running late or something?
No problem. They have those too. They suggest things like, catch you later or have a great day. Those are perfect for keeping it light and friendly without feeling like you have to, hang around forever.
Okay, so whether you're aiming for a lifelong friendship or just a quick chat, it sounds like this script has given us a whole toolbox for navigating the social world.
Yeah. It's like they took all the guesswork out of small talk and gave us a clear path to follow. It's pretty amazing.
And what's so cool is that this script, even though it's for people learning English, it actually shows us some really deep things about human connections, like a reminder that we all want to feel understood, even in those little everyday conversations.
So true. And I think that's what makes this deep dive so valuable. We're not just learning phrases, we're learning about what makes us human and how even a short conversation can make a difference, create a ripple effect.
It's like we're seeing the world through a whole new lens now, right?
Yeah.
And that brings us to the best part, putting it all into practice. We've talked about a lot today, the different phases of small talk, how to make a bid for connection, even practicing in your head. But now it's your turn, dear listener. Take these ideas and make them your own.
Yes. This is where the real transformation happens. We've given you the tools. Now it's up to you to use them. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. The goal isn't to become some kind of small talk robot.
Exactly. Be yourself, be genuine, and use these techniques to connect with people in a real way. So let's recap the top 3 things we've learned from this unexpected deep dive into, mastering small talk. First, Small talk isn't just random. There's a structure you can follow to make those conversations flow.
Second, the words you use actually matter. This script has given us tons of phrases that are interesting, thoughtful, and perfect for different situations.
And third, practice, practice, practice. Whether you're practicing in your head or even role-playing with a friend, the more you do it, the more confident and natural you'll become.
It really is like freeing, right?
Yeah.
Knowing you have these tools, it takes away that fear of like messing up or saying the wrong thing.
For sure. It's like having this, I don't know, secret weapon for social situations. And honestly, the biggest thing I'm taking away from this is small talk doesn't have to be something you dread. It can actually be like fun, a way to connect with people,
100%. What about you? What's sticking with you from all this? What did you find most helpful from looking at this script?
It's funny. I think what resonated most was realizing that everyone, even people who seem super outgoing, they've probably felt that awkwardness too. This script shows that small talk is a skill, like something you can learn and get better at, just like anything else.
Right. It's not like some people are born knowing how to do it and others aren't.
Exactly. It takes so much pressure off. You can just approach those conversations with curiosity, like a little game. Just see what happens.
I love that. A little game. It really can be like an adventure,
Yeah.
discovering something new about someone, even if it's just a tiny thing.
And it reminds you that even those small moments, a quick chat, a smile, they can all make a difference. It's like we're all connected in this big web, and every conversation adds to that,
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into, well, the surprisingly interesting world of small talk, I want to leave you with this. Think about the next time you are in a situation where you know there's going to be some small talk. Maybe it's a party or a work event, even just grabbing coffee. What are you most excited to try out from all the stuff we talked about?
Such a good question.
Yeah.
And hey, remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? Just be yourself, be genuine, and see what happens. You might be surprised how fun and even meaningful those small conversations can be. So go out there and conquer the world of small talk. We believe in you.
Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today we're going to be exploring, well, actually, your English learning journey using a script for a video for English language learners. It's going to be like a deep dive within a deep dive, really. So no matter where you're at, beginner, advanced, somewhere in between, there should be something here for you.
Yeah, I think it's so cool how this script uses like real stories from other people learning English, to like inspire. It's like we're all on this journey together,
Totally. And speaking of journeys, the script like starts off by asking this big question, right? What made you want to learn English in the first place? The why behind your adventure, basically. They give this example of a learner, Anna, and her goal was she just wanted to watch TV, like without subtitles. And what I thought was so cool about that was like, it was totally, coming from her, like she just wanted to do it, not because someone told her she had to or anything.
Right.
Like those are the best reasons,
Right.
when it comes from inside.
Yeah, for sure. Knowing your why can really make a difference, I think, especially when things get tough, When you hit a wall or you just don't feel like studying, it's like having a compass to keep you, heading in the right direction.
I love that, the compass. So I'm curious, what was your why, when you started out? Take a second to think about that. It's worth, revisiting it as you keep going too. Now, the script also digs into how, like, where you are can affect your learning. It gets that not everyone can be like surrounded by English speakers all the time, but it kind of challenges us to get creative.
Yeah. This story about Raj really stuck with me. He lives in this village where literally no one speaks English. And so he basically turned his whole house into this like learning tool, sticky notes everywhere using English for like everyday stuff. It just proves you don't have to be in some English speaking country to learn it well.
It's amazing, right? Talk about resourcefulness. He didn't wait for the perfect situation. He just made it himself. And this actually leads perfectly into what the script talks about next. How to, take all that time we waste and turn it into learning time.
Oh yeah, like when you're scrolling on your phone or whatever and it's not even like fun anymore.
Exactly. But imagine if you could use that time to learn instead. The script mentions Maria, and she would spend like 30 minutes every night on, I think it was TikTok, and she swapped that for English learning videos, and guess what? In just a couple of weeks, her vocabulary like exploded.
Wow.
See? Totally doable. And what's even cooler is you can do this throughout your day, right? Like when you're commuting, waiting in line, even just doing chores. You can listen to podcasts, use apps, just sneak in little bits of English here and there.
Yeah. Just make it a part of your life,
Yeah.
The more you can do that, the more natural it all feels.
Exactly. The script then kind of switches gears and talks about common mistakes that can, slow you down. And this is where I think your expertise is going to be so helpful. One of the first things it mentions is like getting too hung up on grammar, to the point where you're not even really speaking. It's easy to just memorize all the rules, but language is really about talking to people, right?
Absolutely. Grammar's important, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. But sometimes I think it gets too much focus, Like, it's more important to be able to speak fluently and confidently, even if you mess up a little. It's about finding that balance, I think. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. I totally agree with that. You could know all the grammar in the world, but if you can't have a conversation, what's the point, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's like you learn how to play an instrument, but then you never actually play any music.
Exactly. You just practice scales all day long.
Mm.
Okay, so the script's next point, I think this is something we've all dealt with, being scared to make mistakes. I mean, every language learner goes through that, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I think it's so important to, like, change how we think about mistakes. They're not like failures. They're actually like feedback.
Yeah.
Each mistake is a chance to learn and get better.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It takes the pressure off, And this kind of leads into the third mistake they talk about in the script, which is not practicing regularly. We've all been there, right? Like crazy study sessions and then nothing for weeks.
Yeah, I've totally been there. It's always better to do a little bit every day than a lot all at once.
Yeah.
It's like you wouldn't go to the gym once a month for 8 hours and expect to see results. You got to be consistent.
So true. Short, consistent workouts, that's the key. Like the script mentions this learner who went from like these huge study sessions every now and then to just doing 30 minutes a day every day. And they saw way more progress.
It's amazing, right? How much difference just a little bit each day can make.
Yeah.
Our brains, they actually learn better that way too, through repetition and like slow exposure, not cramming.
So instead of trying to do it all at once, just find little ways to fit English into your day, right?
Exactly.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and look at what the script says about, learning English if you don't live in an English-speaking country.
Yeah.
Which can feel like a huge obstacle, but the script has some pretty encouraging examples.
Yeah, I was really interested in that part.
It comes back to what we were saying before about creating that immersive environment, even without actually being around English speakers. And technology can really help with this, right?
Oh, totally.
Like apps for language exchange, online forums, even streaming services with subtitles.
There's so much out there.
Right. Like in the script, they talk about Marco from Spain, and he basically made like his own little English world at home, reading news in English, watching English YouTubers, even talking to friends online from other countries.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's like bringing the English-speaking world to you.
You don't even have to get on a plane.
Exactly. Which leads perfectly into the script's like final challenge, focus on output.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just understand English. You got to use it, by speaking or writing.
Yeah, that's where the real learning happens, I think. Getting out there and actually using the language. I know it can be scary at first, but the more you do it, the easier it gets.
The script suggests a few things you can try, like recording yourself speaking and then listening back to see what you can improve.
Well, that's a good one.
Or joining a speaking group, or even just writing like a short paragraph in English every day.
I like that.
Just little things to get you practicing,
The key is to find what works for you and then make it a habit. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Even 5 minutes a day can make a difference in the long run.
And as we start wrapping up this deep dive here, I think one of the most important things to remember is learning English, it's a journey, right? And every little thing you do, it brings you closer to your goals.
That's a great way to put it.
It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress. I mean, we've talked about so much, right? Like from that whole why thing to making your own little English world. But what really sticks out to me is how much the script is all about, like, doing stuff.
Oh, yeah, totally. You can't just sit there and like, hope you'll learn English.
Right. You got to get out there and use it. And remember how we talked about making mistakes? The script wants us to think about those differently, too.
Yeah, they're not like the end of the world.
They're actually how you get better.
Like little stepping stones.
I love that. So as we wrap up this whole deep dive into learning English, I have one question for you. And it kind of goes back to that output thing we were talking about. What's one small step you're going to take this week to like actually use your English?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Could be anything, really. Record yourself talking for a minute, write an email in English, even just chat with someone online.
It doesn't have to be this big, huge thing.
Exactly. Just something small but consistent.
Like we were saying before, 5 minutes a day, it all adds up.
We've explored a ton of tips today and heard some pretty inspiring stories. I bet there are a few that really resonated with you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So think about those and how you can use them in your own learning. And remember, learning English, it should be fun, not a chore.
Totally. It's an adventure.
Embrace those challenges, you know, celebrate how far you've come and never stop exploring. Happy learning, everyone. Okay, but really think about it for a sec. How often are we all using words that kind of, sabotage what we're trying to say? Like little sneaky words making us sound less confident.
It happens more than you think. And it's wild how these tiny words can really affect how people see us.
Yeah.
Especially at work, right?
Totally. Which is why we're diving into this article, 11 words you should stop saying immediately. We're not just going to list them, though. We're breaking down why they're bad, and most importantly, giving you swaps so you can sound more powerful.
Think of it like upgrading your communication one word at a time.
First up, the word just. Ugh, I'm so guilty of this. You're writing an email and it's like, I just wanted to follow up, or just a quick question. Why does just make us sound so unsure?
It's subtle, but just makes your request smaller, almost like you're apologizing for it. Imagine waiting to hear back about a project, and you're like, I just wanted to follow up on the proposal. What's that say?
Makes me sound hesitant, like I shouldn't even be asking.
Right. But what if you just said, I'm following up on the proposal? It's tiny, but you sound way more confident taking charge.
No more tiptoeing, you own it.
Exactly. And that shift can change how your message lands big time.
Okay, another tricky one. Actually, this feels like a trap almost.
Oh, it can be. Actually, often slips out when we're correcting someone or giving a different view. But imagine someone's like, actually, I think we should go a different way. How's that feel?
Like they're shutting down my idea before even thinking about it?
It can sound condescending, even if they just meant to add to the discussion. Taking out actually makes it more collaborative. Like instead of, actually, I have a question about that, you could say, I'm curious about this part.
More like inviting a chat, not shutting it down.
Perfect. Still saying your thing, but it keeps the flow going, respectfully.
Now, maybe this one feels like almost self-sabotage, wouldn't you say?
It is. You wouldn't use maybe if you were really sure of your idea, so why hedge?
I guess it's like we're scared to commit to our thoughts, you know?
And that hesitation can hurt your credibility, especially at work. Decisiveness often equals competence. Instead of, maybe we should consider this. We should consider this. Hear the difference.
It's like you're leading, not just dipping a toe in.
Right. Showing confidence in your idea, inviting others to follow.
Okay, this one bugs me. Saying sorry when there's no need. Why do we apologize for, existing, basically?
It's a thing, isn't it? Do we really need to apologize for asking a question or taking up space or just saying what we think?
No way. And all that apologizing can actually make us seem, smaller, less confident.
You're right. And the key is, there are way better ways to say things. Instead of, sorry to bother you, try thanks for your time, or I appreciate your input.
Shows respect without sounding unsure. It's like shifting from apologizing for existing to being grateful for their attention.
Small but powerful, right. Changes how you come across.
All right, another confidence killer, I think. It's everywhere, but it makes what we say weaker.
It's a verbal tick for lots of us. But think about how much stronger it is without it. I think this is the best option versus this is the best option. Huge difference.
You're right. It's a fact now, not just an opinion, maybe.
And sure, sometimes you want to say it's your view, not universal truth. But even then, there are better ways.
So instead of, I think, you could say, from my analysis, or based on what I've seen.
Exactly. You're owning your view, but it's more, sophisticated.
Like leveling up your communication, swapping out the wishy-washy stuff for strong, impactful language.
And that's what this deep dive's about, right? Giving you the tools to communicate clearly, confidently, like you mean it. It's crazy, right? How even little changes to how we talk can make us, more confident overall. When we pick words that sound sure, it changes how others see us, but also how we see ourselves.
That's like telling your own brain, hey, I got this.
Totally. And speaking of believing in yourself, let's talk about can't. This one messes with us, keeps us from, doing our best.
Oh, yeah, can't. It's so easy to just say, I can't do this, especially when something's hard.
It's almost automatic, but it's a trap. When we say can't, we're basically stopping ourselves from growing, from changing.
Like we're putting limits on ourselves before even trying.
And honestly, we can do way more than we think we can. So what if instead of I can't, we say something, more powerful? Like, I haven't learned this yet, or I'm still figuring it out.
I like that. It's not saying you'll never do it, just that you're on the way there.
Exactly. And that small change can help you stay motivated, keep going when things get tough.
It reminds me of that saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. What we say really does affect what we believe.
So true. So let's pick words that lift us up, both when we talk to ourselves and to others.
Okay, almost done with the list, but a couple more big ones. Let's do but and. I mean, they're not bad words, but how we use them matters, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's all about the situation and what you're trying to say, but often goes after something positive and it kind of ruins it.
It's like giving a compliment and then taking it back. You did great on that presentation, but I think you could have been more engaging. Oof.
Exactly. The but erases the good stuff you just said.
Yeah.
Makes people feel, I don't know, discouraged.
So what's better?
And swap out the but for and it's way more constructive. Like, you did great on that presentation, and I think we can work together to make it even more engaging.
You're not just criticizing, you're helping. It's about fixing things, not just pointing out what's wrong.
And that's such a good attitude to have, right? At work, anywhere.
All right, got to address the big one. Literally, people misuse this all the time. It's almost funny how wrong it gets.
Yeah, it's become this word people use to emphasize stuff, even when it's not actually true.
Yeah.
But using it wrong makes you sound less credible, like you don't know what you're talking about.
I think it shows how important it is to use the right words. When we choose carefully, we say what we mean more clearly, and it has more impact.
Couldn't agree more. It's about respecting how powerful words are and using them to your advantage. So let's all try to use literally, correctly, and really all words, thoughtfully.
Okay, before we go on, gotta mention kind of and sort of again. They seem small, but they weaken what you're trying to say.
Oh, they're so wishy-washy. They make you sound uncertain, like you don't really care. Imagine telling your boss, I'm kind of excited about this new project. Not exactly inspiring, huh?
Sounds like you'd rather be doing something else.
Exactly. So instead of that, let's use words that are, stronger, more definite, like I'm intrigued by that, instead of I'm sort of interested, more specific, more interesting.
And it shows you're really paying attention, involved in the conversation.
Right on. Now, sticking with words that fill space but don't add anything, let's talk about like. It's supposed to connect with people, but it can actually make you sound less smart.
It's so ironic. It's like people say all the time, especially when they're nervous.
But it's even better. Just pausing.
Yes. Silence is way more effective than filling the space with, nothing.
Gives your brain a second to think, so you can choose better words.
And it makes you sound more thoughtful, calm, which can be really powerful.
And while we're at it, how about, this one comes up when we're not sure if the other person's getting what we're saying. We need them to agree with us.
It's like we're doubting ourselves, even though we're the ones with the ideas.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
You know what you're talking about. You can explain it clearly. Trust yourself. Let that confidence show.
That's a good point. We don't always need someone to tell us we're right. We can just own it.
Exactly. Now, one last thing about how our language affects how we interact with people. We've talked about specific words, but it's also about the vibe we give off.
Right. Sometimes it's not just the words, but how we say them.
Totally. Think about, I have to do this versus I get to do this. It's just a different way of looking at it, but it changes how you feel about it.
It's like turning something you have to do into something you want to do.
It's about feeling like you have control, even when things are tough or boring.
I love that. We really can choose how we see things just by how we talk about them.
And that's kind of the main point of all this. It's not about banning certain words. It's about being aware of what we say, picking words that show what we believe, make us feel confident, and help us really connect with people.
Honestly, I'm kind of fired up now to use all this stuff. It's amazing how just changing a few words can make such a difference in, everything.
It really shows you how powerful language is, right? We don't always realize how much what we say shapes our whole experience.
So for our listeners, what's one thing they can do today to start using all this?
Good question. I think the best way is to just pick one thing, one word from our list that, stood out to you. Maybe you use it too much or you think it's holding you back.
Okay, let's say I pick just. What then?
Try to. Completely stop using it for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to when you want to say it in emails, conversations, even just thinking to yourself.
Like a little challenge? See what happens when you change just one word.
Exactly. I bet you'll be surprised. See how people react when you're more direct, more confident. And notice how it makes you feel. You might find that not saying just makes you sound more sure of yourself. And D actually makes you more confident.
So it's like teaching your brain to use better words by default.
Yeah. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. It's like exercise. The more you use those confident words, the more natural they'll feel.
Makes sense. So it's not about being perfect right away. It's about getting better over time.
Exactly. And hey, you don't have to do this alone. Tell a friend about the episode or a coworker and help each other out. You could even make it fun. Point out when someone slips up.
That's a good idea. It's always easier to stick with something when you have someone to do it with.
And who knows, maybe you'll start this chain reaction of confident communication at work everywhere.
What a great thought. Well, we've definitely given everyone a lot to think about today. It's been, really interesting and inspiring. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how to use words to be more confident and clear.
It's been great diving into this with you. And to everyone listening, remember, what we say really matters. So let's choose our words carefully. And until next time, stay curious, stay confident, and keep on learning.
All right. So are you ready to really boost your English fluency? I mean, take it to that next level.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Well, today we're diving deep into phrasal verbs.
Those are essential.
They really are. They're like the secret code to sounding really natural,
Yes.
Especially if you're already pretty comfortable with the basics of English.
Right, you got to get those phrasal verbs down.
Exactly.
And what I think is so fascinating about them is the way they kind of weave themselves into just everyday English.
Yeah, it's like you can't escape them, can you?
No, you can't. And they're not just about casual chit-chat.
Right.
They pop up everywhere. We'll see them in professional settings, travel scenarios, even when you're talking about learning new things or improving yourself.
Yeah, you're right. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
We've got 25 essential phrasal verbs to unpack today, and I'm telling you, you'll be surprised by how their meanings can shift depending on the situation.
Yeah, it's true. It's sometimes the same phrasal verb can have so many different meanings.
Right.
If they're these little chameleons.
Right.
Blending in, adding that extra layer of meaning.
Subtle mastery, huh?
Yes. That's what sets apart a fluent speaker.
For sure. So let's start with those everyday conversations, the ones we have all the time. I'm thinking about turn up and run into. They seem so simple on the surface.
Right. Yeah.
But I bet there's more to them than meets the eye.
Oh, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Take turn up, for example.
Okay.
If someone says he didn't turn up for the meeting, that kind of has a negative connotation to it, right?
You're like, where were you?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Implies a lack of responsibility. Maybe even a little bit of disrespect.
For sure.
But, if you're at a party and the volume's too low, you might say, can you turn up the music?
Yeah, that's true.
Same verb, totally different vibe, right?
It is. It's like the context around the phrasal verb, it colors it, gives it that extra layer of meaning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And run into kind of has that element of chance, surprise. If you say, I ran into an old friend, that paints a much more vivid picture than just saying oh, I met an old friend.
Right. I see what you mean.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. You can almost feel the surprise and joy in that encounter.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit here. Let's talk about the work and business category.
Okay.
And I noticed in this section, look into and come up with. These are verbs you'd probably hear, in an office setting.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Maybe in a boardroom, who knows?
Yeah, boardroom, meeting, these verbs are all about clarity and action in a professional setting.
Right, being efficient.
Efficient, yeah. If you say we need to look into this issue that sounds a lot more, proactive, it's more decisive than just saying we need to investigate.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And come up with that one's all about that creative problem solving.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a good one.
I like that. So it's almost like these phrasal verbs cut through all the fluff.
Yes.
They just get straight to the point, which is so important at work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Especially in a fast-paced environment.
Yeah. And imagine you're in a meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And you're struggling to express those key actions.
It would be painful.
Yeah. So mastering these, can make you a much more effective communicator at work.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's get ready to explore the world a little bit. Travel and socializing. When it comes to this, I thought about pick up, and drop off.
Yes.
They're essential for getting around, making plans,
Absolutely. I mean, think about that classic travel phrase. Can you pick me up from the airport?
It's so common.
It's so common.
Yeah.
It's direct. It's clear. It gets the message across.
Effortless.
Yeah, effortless, yeah. And drop off, too. Like, I'll drop you off at the station on my way. Makes, coordinating plans so much smoother.
Yeah, super smooth.
Super smooth.
You know what's interesting about those two is it highlights the social aspect of language,
I know.
If you offer to pick someone up or drop them off, it's more than just the action, It kind of conveys a sense of, I don't know, like helpfulness, consideration.
Right, you're going out of your way for them a little.
Exactly. Okay, and speaking of subtle shifts in meaning, check-in. That one seems to have like multiple personalities.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
Depending on the context.
It does.
Right.
You've hit the nail on the head there. Check in at a hotel, like that's a formal procedure, right? Yeah. But if you say check in with a friend, that's just casual.
Totally different.
Totally different. It implies like that you care.
Right. You're just seeing how they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a perfect example of how, phrasal verbs just adapt and evolve, They just change.
Yes. Yes, they do. They do.
Depending on the situation. All right, it's time to level up our skills even more. Learning and self-improvement. I'm intrigued by catch up on and figure out, they seem to like capture the essence of personal growth.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they really do. Catch up on, that kind of implies that you're making an effort, right?
Yeah.
Like a conscious effort to, stay current, expand your knowledge.
Yeah, it's like active learning.
Yes. And figure out, has that problem-solving vibe, right?
It's like that aha moment.
Yes, it's about like overcoming challenges, pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone.
Which is like part of personal development, right?
Absolutely. Embracing those aha moments.
Yeah.
And recognizing that, learning it's a journey.
It never ends.
It never ends. What's fascinating is how these verbs kind of empower you to like talk about your learning journey.
Yeah, to actually articulate it.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
So thinking about those learning goals, is there a particular phrasal verb from this category that like resonates with you right now?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Something that you could see yourself using, on your self-improvement journey.
Let me think. I think figure out, actually. I like that one because, well, I am always trying to figure out new ways to approach problems.
Yeah.
Or just learn from my experiences.
Absolutely.
It's a verb that shows that continuous growth.
Yes.
Which I find motivating, It never stops.
It never stops.
So I like that one.
It's like figure out becomes a reminder to just stay curious.
Right.
And embrace that whole learning process.
Yeah, exactly. And you never know what you're gonna learn next when you're trying to figure things out.
Exactly.
I like that.
That's a good one.
It really is amazing how much meaning these little verbs pack. They really make our communication so much more dynamic.
They do, yeah. It's like they unlock fluency somehow.
Yeah.
Make English sound, well, more natural.
Speaking of unlocking things,
Yeah.
I have a fun idea.
Okay.
How about we do a little quiz just to test what we know about these phrasal verbs so far?
Oh, I love a quiz.
Yeah.
Let's do it. See if our listeners have been paying attention.
Okay, first question. Imagine you're working on a project and it's just not going anywhere. You finally decide to just stop working on it completely.
All the time.
Right. So which phrasal verb would you use? Would you say that you gave up on the project or looked into it or maybe turned up at the meeting?
Okay, so we're looking for the verb that means to just like stop completely, abandon it.
Exactly. And the answer is
Gave up.
gave up. Yeah.
Yeah, you gave up on that project.
It definitely doesn't feel good, but
Yeah.
it happens. Sometimes things just don't work out.
It's a fact of life.
Yeah.
All right, ready for the next question?
Get me with it.
Okay, so imagine you're trying to understand like a really complex problem
Yeah.
and you want to get to the root of it, like all the little details.
Okay, so like you're really trying to solve it, not just scratch the surface.
Exactly, yeah. So which phrasal verb fits best here? Would you figure out the problem, go over the details, or run into a solution?
So this is all about being really analytical, right? Like really digging into the problem.
Yes, exactly. Thinking it through.
So the answer must be
Go over.
go over. That's right.
Yeah, you're going over all the details.
Okay, last question. You're getting ready to give a presentation
Okay.
and you want to practice it beforehand. Which verb describes that? Would you show up the presentation, come up with a new idea, or maybe run through your speech?
This one is all about getting ready, rehearsing, making sure you know everything.
Yeah. Making sure it all flows, all the pieces are in place.
Exactly. So the answer has to be
Run through.
run through.
Yeah.
You got to run through that presentation.
Make sure you're prepared for anything.
Exactly.
Well done, listeners. You guys are pros. You're really getting the hang of these verbs.
You're going to be fluent in no time.
But this is just the beginning. I mean, there's so much more out there, when it comes to phrasal verbs.
Oh, yeah. So many. It's like a whole other world.
It is like another level of fluency.
It is.
So before we finish our deep dive today, I want to talk about how to actually make these 25 verbs part of your everyday English.
Yeah.
It's one thing to understand them,
Right.
but how do you actually use them naturally,
That's the real challenge. It's all about like bridging that gap between knowledge and actually applying it.
Yeah.
The good news is with phrasal verbs, like they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Just pay attention to how native speakers use them in conversations, in movies, and songs.
Yeah, that's good advice. Like just be more aware.
Be more aware. Yeah, you'll start to notice patterns and kind of pick up on the nuances.
Yeah, it's like immersive learning,
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment.
Yeah.
Try using these phrasal verbs in your own conversations.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You might stumble a bit at first.
Yeah, of course.
But that's okay. That's all part of the learning process.
Right, you're not going to get it perfect the first time.
Exactly. Yeah. But the more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
Of course. It's like anything, right? Practice makes perfect.
Exactly.
But sometimes just like jumping in can be a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips to make the learning process a bit more, organized?
Oh, absolutely. Like a great technique is to use flashcards.
Oh, yeah.
Like write the phrasal verb on one side and then maybe like an example sentence on the other.
Yeah, classic.
Classic, yeah. That way you're not just like memorizing the definition. You're actually seeing it in action.
Right. You see how it works in a sentence.
Exactly, yeah. Another good strategy is to keep like a phrasal verb journal.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Every time you encounter a new one, just jot it down.
Yeah, like your own personal dictionary.
Exactly. And you can add an example sentence too.
Yeah.
You'll be amazed at how quickly your vocabulary will grow.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Before we wrap up completely, I'm just curious, do you have like a go-to phrasal verb? One that you just use all the time?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think mine would probably be breakdown.
Oh, yeah.
It's so versatile.
Mm-hmm.
You can break down a problem, you can break down a concept, you can even break down a wall.
Yeah, it's true.
It just means to analyze something, make it more simple, make it more manageable.
Yeah, and it works in so many situations. I think that's what's so cool about phrasal verbs, right? Yeah. They're adaptable.
Yes.
And once you start using them, your English just sounds so much more natural.
It really does.
Yeah.
So just remember, this deep dive, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Keep exploring, keep practicing, and most importantly, have fun with it.
Yes. Learning should be fun.
It should be fun, yeah.
Yeah.
The more you enjoy it, the more you'll learn.
Absolutely. So as you go about your day-to-day, what phrasal verbs are you going to try to use?
Yeah, good question.
Will you brush up on your skills? Will you look out for some new opportunities?
I might try to dream up a new adventure.
Ooh, I like that one. The possibilities are endless.
They are. It's been so fun diving into the world of phrasal verbs with you.
It has been.
Happy learning, everyone.
And that's a wrap on our exploration of these fascinating little, bundles of words. We hope you feel inspired to embrace phrasal verbs, make them a part of your everyday English, because fluency is a journey, not a destination, right? And every step you take brings you closer to mastering this amazing language. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, so get this. Today we're looking at how to boost your English fluency with just 19 words.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy, right? Sounds too good to be true, but that's what this whole deep dive is about.
Yeah.
We're going to look at the source material. It's like a crash course for English fluency. Just 19 words.
It's interesting because a lot of people think that to be fluent, you have to know tons of words.
Right.
But this is like the opposite. It's about using the right words at the right time.
Oh, I like that. Like having a toolbox.
Exactly.
With just the tools you need.
Yeah.
So where do we even start with this? There's all these different categories in the source material.
Well, the first one that comes to mind is transition words.
Okay, transition words.
Those little words that connect your ideas?
Like however and therefore.
Exactly. Those are great examples.
Yeah, we use those all the time.
Yeah. But they're so important.
Yeah, I never really thought about like why they're important.
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
If you were listening to someone
Yeah.
and they just jumped from one idea to the next
Oh, yeah.
without any transitions,
It'd be so jarring.
that sounds so spread.
Where are you going with this? Yeah.
So transitions help everything flow. And when you use them well, you sound more organized, more articulate.
Right, because you're guiding the listener.
Exactly.
You're not just like throwing random ideas out there.
It's like you're saying, hey, stick with me here. I'm taking you somewhere.
Okay, that makes
Okay.
sense. So those little words really make a difference.
They do.
Now, I want to talk about something that I struggle with.
Okay.
It's those power verbs
Yeah.
and clarity adjectives. Like, why say something is good
Right.
when you could say it's compelling?
Exactly. Or insightful.
Yes. Like, think about a time when you were just captivated by something. What words would you use to describe it?
Exactly. You want to use words that paint a picture.
Okay.
And strong verbs do that.
So instead of saying, I made a new strategy,
Yeah.
you say, I implemented a new strategy.
Exactly. So that's much stronger.
Oh, it sounds so much better.
Right.
But sometimes I just don't have those words at my fingertips.
Right.
You know, I know what I want to say, but
Yeah. It can be tough.
yeah.
But that's the beauty of this 19-word thing. You don't
Right.
have to learn a million words.
Yeah.
Just focus on these key ones.
So quality over quantity,
Exactly. And it's not about trying to sound like super smart.
right?
It's about being clear and effective.
Oh.
Like, for example, if you're sending a professional email
Yeah.
and there's a problem, instead of saying, this is bad,
Oh, right.
you could say, this presents a challenge.
Okay, so you're still acknowledging the problem,
Right.
but in a more professional way.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. Okay, now for the one that always trips me up,
Oh, tell me.
affect versus effect.
Oh, classic.
I swear, I still mix these up.
Don't worry, you're not alone. Even native speakers mess these up.
Oh, thank goodness.
But it's so important to get them right.
Yeah, if you're giving a presentation or something,
Right.
it can undermine your whole message.
Exactly.
So how do we finally conquer this?
Okay, so remember this. Affect is usually a verb,
Other.
meaning to influence.
Okay.
And effect is usually a noun, meaning the result.
Okay.
So the weather affected my mood.
It influenced how you felt.
Right. And the effect of the weather was that I stayed inside.
That was the outcome. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense now.
Good.
So we've got our transition words, our power verbs and adjectives, and we've tackled those tricky word pairs. What's next?
Let's talk about natural phrases.
Ooh,
You know, those little expressions that make you sound.
like a native speaker.
Exactly.
I'm ready to unlock the secrets. What have we got?
Well, the source material mentions things like out of the blue, hit the nail on the head,
Yeah.
think outside the box.
Okay, so I actually use those.
Yeah.
But I never thought about how they might sound
Yeah.
to someone learning English.
Right. Because for native speakers,
Yeah.
they just come naturally.
Right.
But they add so much personality to your language.
Instead of just like stating facts,
Exactly.
you're adding flavor.
Right.
It's like adding spices to a dish.
I love that analogy.
So the other day, I was telling my friend
Yeah.
how I saw someone I hadn't seen in years.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I ran into him out of the blue.
Yeah.
It just felt more natural than
Gosh.
saying, I saw him unexpectedly.
Yeah, those natural phrases, they just add another level.
They do. They do. I'm definitely going to pay more attention to those
Good.
and try to use them more.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these small tweaks can really make a difference.
That's what this whole 19-word approach is about.
Yeah.
Giving you the tools to communicate better.
So we've got our transitions, our power verbs, tricky pairs,
Yeah.
natural phrases. What's the final tool in our fluency toolbox?
Let's talk about those advanced nouns.
Oh, okay.
You know, words like dilemma, momentum, consensus.
Yeah, those are the ones that make you sound really smart.
They do.
But I'll be honest, I sometimes get a little intimidated by them.
Yeah.
Like I'll be in a conversation and think, oof, there's a better word for this.
Right.
But I just can't think of it.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
It's normal to feel that way.
Okay.
Because we don't use those words every day.
Right.
But when you do use them,
Yeah.
it shows a deeper understanding of the language.
Like you're saying, hey, I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, challenge accepted. I'm going to try to use those more.
Good.
Maybe I'll impress myself.
I think you will. And remember, it's not about sounding smarter than everyone.
Right.
It's about using language effectively.
Okay, so we've explored all these categories
Yeah.
of these 19 words.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we actually put this into practice? The source material does mention some practice tips.
It does. It talks about the importance of practice.
Right, because it's not enough to just know the words.
Exactly. You have to use them.
You have to actually use them.
Yes. And one tip is to start small.
Okay.
Don't try to use all 19 words at once.
Right, that would be overwhelming.
It would be. So just focus on one or two at a time.
That's a great point. It's like breaking it down into smaller steps
Exactly.
so it feels less daunting.
And remember, fluency is a journey.
Not a destination.
Right. So be patient with yourself and celebrate your progress.
Okay, I love that.
It even says, like, try to use just one new word a day.
Oh, wow.
Like, imagine you
Yeah.
could add 365 new words to your vocabulary in a year.
That's amazing.
Oh.
That would totally change the game.
Right.
And doesn't even sound that hard.
No.
I could definitely use one new word a day.
Yeah.
It's like a fun little challenge.
It is. It's all about that momentum, you know?
Yeah, those little wins.
Exactly. It keeps you going.
And it makes it feel less overwhelming.
Totally.
Like this whole less is more idea.
Yeah.
Focus on the essentials,
Right.
master those, and then you'll sound more fluent.
Exactly. It's about being intentional, right?
Yeah.
Choosing the words that really matter.
You know, we've all had those moments where someone says just the right thing
Yes.
and it just hits you.
It's powerful, right?
It is. Like it makes you think or feel something.
Exactly.
And that's the power of choosing your words carefully.
It is. You know, there's that famous quote. It's
Yeah.
like, I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time.
That's so true.
Right. Because being concise,
Yeah,
it actually takes more effort,
it does.
but it's worth it.
Yeah, it's the difference between just speaking and really communicating.
Exactly.
Think about a speech that's moved you. It's probably not full of like jargon or super complicated words.
Right.
It's simple but powerful.
Yeah. The words resonate with you.
They do. It's like
Like what?
it's like a chef who uses just a few high quality ingredients
Okay. Yeah.
but creates an amazing dish.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, they're not trying to like overwhelm you with flavors.
Right.
It's all carefully selected.
So if we apply that to language,
Yeah.
it's about being mindful of how we combine words.
To get our message across.
Exactly.
It's like the grammar of fluency.
It is. It's not just knowing the words. It's
Yeah.
how you put them together.
Yeah, the structure, the tone, the emphasis.
Right off the bat.
You know, as we're talking, I'm realizing fluency isn't just about sounding native.
No.
It's about connecting with people.
Exactly. It's like building bridges.
Yeah, between minds and heart.
When you can express yourself clearly,
Yeah.
it opens up so many possibilities.
I mean, you're free to share your ideas, your stories,
Yeah.
without feeling limited by language.
Exactly.
That's so empowering.
It is. Fluency lets you participate in conversations, build relationships, advocate for things you care about.
Wow.
You can even inspire others with your words.
I love that. It's about having a voice
Yes.
and using it.
And, you know, I've definitely held back from saying things.
Really?
Yeah, because I wasn't sure if I could say it right.
Oh, I get that.
But with practice,
Yeah.
those barriers come down.
Okay, so this 19-word approach,
Yeah.
it's like a starting point to build
From feeling intimidated to feeling empowered.
We talk a lot about personal growth on this show.
Yeah.
And I think language is such a big part of that.
Totally.
It's how we express ourselves.
Yeah.
How we connect with the world.
It's essential.
And it's a journey that never really ends.
It doesn't. Language is always changing.
That's true.
So there's always more to learn.
Okay. I think this is a good place to take a pause.
Sound good.
But don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back.
We have more to share. All right. So we're back. And I was just thinking, this whole fluency thing, it's not just about sounding like a native speaker.
Right.
It's about really connecting with people.
It is. It's like you're able to express yourself more fully.
So someone listening might be thinking, okay, this is all great, but how do I actually,
Yeah.
use this?
Well, remember that source material?
Yeah.
It really stresses that you don't have to know every word in the dictionary.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. It's about
Yeah.
choosing the right words
Okay.
to express yourself clearly.
And confident.
Yes.
And what I like about this approach
Oh.
is it's for anyone, no matter your level.
Exactly. Beginner, advanced.
Yeah.
It's about shifting your mindset
Okay.
from feeling overwhelmed
Yeah.
to focusing on the essentials, like those 19 words.
So it's like having a strong foundation.
Yes.
Instead of trying to build like a skyscraper on sand.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey,
Yeah.
not a destination.
Be patient, celebrate the progress.
And enjoy those aha moments.
I love those. Like when you use a new word and it just clicks.
It feels so good. You know, one thing I keep thinking about is how important it is to be intentional with language.
Oh, yeah. That's been coming up for me, too.
It's not just about speaking fluently. It's about speaking thoughtfully.
Choosing your words carefully.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Making sure your message is clear.
So it has the impact you want.
Right. Like, it's the difference between throwing a dart randomly and aiming for the bullseye.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Intentionality brings focus.
Yes. And it shows in how people perceive you when you use language precisely.
Yeah.
You sound more confident, more credible.
It's like you're saying, I respect your time, so I'm going to make every word count.
Exactly.
So, to wrap things up, I have a question for our listeners out there.
Okay, what is it?
We focused on these 19 words, but what other words or phrases do you think are essential for fluency?
I love that question because it shows that language is always changing. Right. There are always new words to learn.
New things to discover.
So keep expanding your vocabulary.
That's such a good reminder. It's a lifelong journey.
It is.
No matter how fluent you think you are.
There's always more to learn.
I love that. Oh. Okay, so to our listener, keep your ears open, your mind curious, and your tongue practicing.
The world needs to hear your voice.
Yes. And fluency is the key to unlocking its potential.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.